Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so welcome everyone to our daily evening Bhagavad Gita classes. We are going to be continuing our introduction. So we are going to be speaking from
the Supreme Conscious Ishwar.
yes, where is it? Okay. Okay. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalankaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namasate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Pancha Kalpa Tarusha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Sadhikaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. So we are in the paragraph that starts with the Supreme Conscious Ishvara. Okay. The Supreme Conscious Ishvara is similar to the living entity in this way. Both the consciousness of the Lord and that of the living entity are transcendental. It is not that consciousness is generated by the association of matter. That is a mistaken idea. The theory that consciousness develops under certain circumstances of material combination is not accepted in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so this is a very, very important point here that Prabhupada is writing here. That consciousness is not created by matter. No amount of material combination is going to give rise to consciousness. But we see that so many people in this world, they have this misconception that life has come from matter. Now Prabhupada has written a very elaborate book on this subject matter called Life Comes from Life, refuting all the points made by the scientists at that time about how life actually comes from life, it doesn't come from matter, right? So many scientists, they have a misconception on the origin of life. They say consciousness comes from the interaction of chemicals in this body. However, this is not true according to the Gita and Vedic knowledge. If it was true, then why can't we create life from the chemicals available in nature already? Srila Prabhupada regularly challenged the scientists of those days that, they said that one day we will be able to create life in the future from the chemicals. But Prabhupada was very smart. He said, why should I believe you? Yeah, if you're claiming that you can create life with chemicals, then show me now. Know how he described this as? He described it like the scientists are giving us a post-dated check. He says like, I'm a millionaire. Okay, you're claiming I'm a millionaire. I will give you money. I'll give you a check. Yeah, in the future, but we'll see about that in the future. But a wise person will be like, okay, I don't trust any future, at least give me $5. Give me $5 as tangible proof that you'll be able to give me $1 million maybe at 2 years from now. That they cannot do. That they cannot do. So Prabhupada ji used to say that this is just guesswork. It is only like a child's play, that they're thinking that they are advancing, but actually their methods are not scientific at all. Science, as we heard yesterday, means that it is proven, it is true, and it is true at all times, all places, all circumstances. At all kala, desha and patra. All these three things have to be true at all places. Only then is it called scientific. That means that it is universally accepted. Just like gravity. Gravity is universally accepted. It's not like this gravity here in Kenya and then you go to America and there's no gravity, everything is floating in the air. No. The principles of gravity, which is universally accepted as scientific, is true at every place. Okay? So similarly, the origins of life, they are also scientific if you accept the knowledge of the Gita. Okay? The scientists, they decry the belief in the concept of the soul, but they can't even give an alternative framework to explain reality. Thus, Prabhupada had concluded that whatever scientific advancement is happening is just guesswork. It's not actually science. Okay. So even if it is not science, why is there still a wholesale denial of understanding the science of the soul? Why do scientists, who are actually very, very intelligent people, why can't they accept the proposition of the soul? Now, this is because the scientists are basically studying matter. So they're trying to understand the entire world through the workings of matter. Okay? Now, in science, there is a concept known as causal completeness. That means that everything, every effect that you see can be explained only by material causes. Okay? Every effect can be understood by only material causes. For example, I have this phone. Now, if I leave the phone, what will happen to the phone? It will fall. And then what will happen to the phone? There will be a crack. Now, if I fling the phone down, what will happen to the phone? It will shatter. So, you see a difference in the crack. If you just drop it, there's a small crack. If I throw it, there's a bigger crack. So, based on the effect, the size of the crack, we can make an inference as to what the cause would be. Yeah? And then you say that, oh, it fell down because of the law of gravity. Okay, so everything, that effect has been explained by the cause, which is material. So they say that everything in this world can be explained in only a materialistic way or in a material mechanistic way. This is what the scientists claim. Okay, let's see if this is true. Okay, so they say that there is no observable influence of the soul acting on the body. They say that how is the body moving? Well, the body is moving because you're eating. The food is giving you energy, and that is why you're able to move. So that is how they have described how is movement possible. Yeah, the movement is possible because there is food, and the food is the fuel of the body. Just like a car. A car has got petrol in it, and that is why the engine can run. Okay, this is what they are saying. Okay, let's understand this more. So they say that there is no observable influence of the soul. They say that in all our scientific experiments and advances, we have not seen the soul acting. There is no thing that the soul is actually acting on the body that is causing it for the body to run. We can explain how the heart beats, how the brain works, how the nervous system goes. We can explain all of this through medical advancements or material knowledge. So, how many of you think this is true? How many of you think that there is no influence of the soul on the body, on the workings of the body? How many? Okay. So, in one way, actually everything can be explained in a materialistic way. Everything can. Okay? How can we say this? So in the first line or the first invocation of the Sri Ishopanishad, it is said, Om Purnam Ada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Shishyate. The personality of God, it is perfect and complete. Okay? The God is perfect and complete. And because He is completely perfect, all His emanations are perfect, such as this phenomenal world, like this material world. This material world is also perfect. It has got all the elements in it to work perfectly, and are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole, so whatever comes from Krishna, is also complete in itself. Yeah, even this material world is complete in itself. It has got everything it needs to function independently. There doesn't have to be continuous supervision. It works like a automatic machine. That is why in the Gita it says that Krishna says that the soul is seated in a body-mind machine which works perfectly. Okay? Because he is a complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains a complete balance. So for example, when Newton saw the apple was falling from the tree, Newton was a great believer in God. Yet when he saw the phenomenon, he did not say that, oh, I saw God's hand throwing the apple. No, he discovered the laws of gravity, which is a material law, right? So the problem that happens is that scientists are trying to find how the soul has a material influence on the body. But this is the problem. The soul is not material. So how is the soul going to have a material influence on the body? Yeah? It's a completely spiritual entity. It does not influence in a material way. You cannot test the influence of the soul in a material way. What you can do is you can test the presence of the soul in a spiritual way, because it influences in a spiritual way. Okay? So let us understand this. Let us think of the analogy of a car and the body. Okay? Now, does a car move because the driver wants to go somewhere, or because the engine is activated by the fuel in it? What do you think? Okay. Now the driver, you said the driver. So does a car move because the driver wants to go somewhere, or because there's fuel in the car which activates engine? Okay. Now, have you ever gone in a car which has got no petrol? It doesn't work. Okay, even if electric, if the battery doesn't work, then what happens? So the soul might be there. The soul might be there. But the fuel is also important. So this is what is happening. This is what you need to understand. That both these answers are correct. You need both of them for the car to move properly. You need to have the driver, and at the same time you need the machinery to be perfect for the car to move. Okay? So we can understand. So for a car to move, there are two factors. There is a material factor and then there is a non-material factor. The material factor is of course the fuel and the mechanics of the car. And then there is a non-material factor, which is the driver. So both of these have to be there for it to work. Yeah. Now, the more sophisticated the machine, the more or the less you will need to see the effect of the non-material entity. Now, for example, I give you 4 things. You are running. When you are running, how much energy are you utilizing of yourself? So much. You're exerting a lot of energy for you to be able to move from point A to point B. Now, say you had got a horse. Now, when you're on the horse, are you exerting the same amount of pressure and same amount of energy to move from point A to point B? No. Now, say you've got a car. Do you need as much energy as you need to ride a horse to go from point A to point B? No. You need even less. You just have to press a bit on the accelerator and the car moves. And say you are now in the age of self-driving cars. You just have to sit in the car and say go. The only thing you have to do is say go. So when you're running, you're putting so much energy is being exerted to go from point A to point B. But at the self-driving car, you just have to sit and say go, and you cover the distance from point A to point B without much effort. So this body is the most sophisticated machine that has been created by Bhagwan. So for it to be activated, it requires a very, very subtle force that is provided by the soul. Everything else works automatically. It works very automatically. That is why the scientists, they get stumped because they're trying to find how is it a soul is acting on the body, but because science's only purview is to understand things through matter, they are trying to fit the explanation of the soul in materialistic terms. But the soul is not even matter. The soul is spiritual. So it does not even exert a material force. It exerts a spiritual influence. Now Krishna explains this point very nicely in the 13th chapter. He says, so before we get that, we understood this example of the body, of the car and the body. Now, right now there is a cricket going on, Champions Trophy. Now there is a batsman, and now he needs to get a 6 on the last ball. So he is ready to face the bowler, and the ball comes and hits it for a 6. And the whole crowd goes wild, and everyone is cheering, And then at last, the commentator comes and he asks for an interview to the batsman who hit the winning runs. And he said, "How did you hit it?" Now what if the batsman said, "Oh, it was just Newton's law of motion. The ball came, I hit it, it hit on this angle with this much force, and that is why it created enough power for the ball to go over the boundary." Is this a valid explanation? Yes, it is a valid explanation. It is the laws of physics. But is this what the commentator was asking? What was the commentator wanting to know when he asked this question, how did you hit the 6? What was he trying to understand? He was trying to understand what was going in your mind. What was the inspiration? How did you manage to hit it? And he says that then when the batsman says, "Oh, I anticipated the bowler to bowl here. That is why I changed my stance, and that is what enabled me to get inspiration to hit this way." This is what they are looking for, the non-material explanation, not the material explanation that, oh, the ball came with this much acceleration, it pitched here, it came out in this angle, if I face the bat at this angle and I meet it at this point, it will have generated this much force and it would have gone for a 6. If I missed it, it would have taken a top edge and a fielder would have caught it. The commentator is not interested in that sort of explanation, not a materialistic explanation. He wants to know the non-materialistic. What is the inspiration? Inspiration comes from a conscious living being, not from a unconscious living thing. So, as we said, that the soul exerts a non-material influence, not a materialistic influence. Okay. Now, even a small child. So this we've understood, that the soul is spiritual and acts on and has spiritual influence on the body. Now, even a small child can understand this. Yeah. If you put a living body and a dead body in front of a small child, they'll easily be able to tell you what is missing, and they said the soul is missing. Even in our conversations, when we go to the funeral and then we say that, oh, so sad that he has gone, but the body is right there. Where is he gone? What has gone? Who has gone? Even in our normal day-to-day English, we say my house, my car, my hand, my body. We don't say I body. We have this understanding that we are different from the body, even in our day-to-day English language that we utilize. So it's not such a very difficult concept to understand. And Krishna, to help us understand this concept, in the 13th chapter, at the end of the 13th chapter, he gives two metaphors to understand how the soul interacts with the body, so that we understand. Now the first one is in 13:33. He says, Yatta sarva gatam sokshmayad akasham nopali yate sarvatra vashtito dehe tata atma nopalipyate. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. So here, Krishna uses the analogy of the sky and compares it to how the sky doesn't mix with anything, and yet it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul does not mix with the body, although it is situated within the body. And where is it situated within the body? It is situated in the heart region. Actually, the soul lies within 5 different types of air. And within these 5 different types of air, the soul is situated and it radiates. How does it radiate? Look at the next slope. In 13:34, Krishna says, Yada prakashya yati ekaha kritsnam lokam imam ravi. Just like the sun situated in one part of the universe illuminates the entire universe. Similarly, Kshetram, body, Kshetri, soul, Tatta kritsnam prakashyanti bharata. Like that, just like the sun situated in one place illuminates its influence everywhere, similarly the soul situated at one place within the body radiates its influence everywhere. And that is why we have this sensation of consciousness, or the symptom of consciousness. Whether somebody pinches you here or here or here, wherever on your body you are being pinched, you will feel that sensation because you are a conscious living being, because there is a soul inside this body. Okay? Now, if there was no soul, like even fire, Even the sensation of fire, even if it just comes close to us, we feel the heat. We feel the heat. But can the fire experience its own heat? Can the fire experience its own heat? Does it know that it is hot? No. It is only a conscious being who is able to feel that this thing is hot. I'm feeling a burning sensation. Okay? So when fire comes and we put our hand there, what do? We just remove the thing. Yeah, but what does science say? Oh, science says, oh, because it's pain receptors, the pain receptors take the message that, oh, skin is burning, it's getting hot, sends it to the brain sends a signal to the hand, to the motor neurons, remove your hand. So this is what material science does. Material science is very good at explaining that. But now what happens when you go to the samshan, or there the bodies are put into the funeral pyre? There's so much heat there. Does the body move from there? So just from a small fire, you get a sensation of removing your hand. But when there's no soul in the body, even if you put it in the funeral pyre, it will not move. It will just burn into ashes. Where is the consciousness there? So this is a very simple yet very profound understanding that we must have to understand this point. Okay? Now, this understanding can only be had when you have the eyes of knowledge. These material eyes are insufficient to be able to understand this knowledge. And that's why Krishna says, so in 1333, Krishna gives a metaphor of the sky. In 1334, Krishna gives a metaphor of the sun. And then in 1335, what does Krishna say? Krishna says that Kshetra Kshetragnyor evam antaram jnana chakusha. If you want to see the difference between the Kshetra, the body, and the Kshetragna, the soul, then you must have jnana chakshu. You must be having the eyes of knowledge. Shri Shri Rukmini Dwarkadish ki jai, Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshan Hanuman ki jai, Shri Shri Gaunitaya ki jai. So, Krishna says that we must get jnana chakshu. Okay? Now the question is, where do you get this jnana chakshu from? How do you cultivate this jnana chakshu? So, you get it, you get those eyes of knowledge from people who already have that knowledge. Yeah? So those who see with the eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature, attain to the supreme goal. So Prabhupada writes in that purport of the shlok, a faithful person should at first have some good association to hear of God and thus gradually become enlightened. If one accepts a spiritual master, one can learn to distinguish between matter and spirit, and that becomes a stepping stone for further spiritual realization. A spiritual master, by various instructions, teaches his students to get free from the material concept of life. For instance, in the Bhagavad Gita, we find Krishna instructing Arjuna to free him from materialistic considerations. So Krishna again brings out this point in the 4th chapter, in text number 34. Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te gnanam jnaninas tattva darshina. Jnaninas tattva darshina. You go to those people who are self-realized. And what is the qualification of a person who is self-realized? He knows, or he has taken darshan of tattva. He knows everything in its right tattva. Yeah? So we have like blindfolds or intelligence. We are ignorant and our hands are tied. We do not know where we are going. So if we want to get free, we need to approach somebody who has removed their own blindfolds and who are free. Then they can help to free us. That is why we say, Om Ajnana Timirandasya. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. And then the spiritual master uplifted me. Yeah? He burnt away all the ignorance with the torchlight of knowledge. With the torchlight of knowledge. Okay? So that's very important, that if we want to understand or gain the eyes of knowledge, we must approach a spiritual master. Now we read ahead. Now, consciousness may be pervertedly reflected by the covering of material circumstances, just as light reflected through colored glass may appear to be a certain color. Okay, let's stop there. Yeah? Now, why is our consciousness, which in the first line it says that it is transcendental, how can our consciousness, which was originally transcendental, become contaminated? How can it be, sorry, what is it? How can it be covered by material circumstances? How is it possible? So, the reason why our original consciousness, which is transcendental, is contaminated is because, one, we are minute. Okay, we are not of infinite ability or power. We are minute, and so we have minute free will. If we misuse this free will, we are basically overcome by the material nature, which, although inferior, is able to overpower us because we are minute. Okay? Now, the example that is given here is very nice, that just as consciousness may be perversely reflected by the covering of material circumstances, just as light reflected through colored glass may appear to be a certain color. But that actual light, it's got a pure color, it's white. Now if you put a red film on it, then it becomes perverted to be coming as red color. But actually its color is what? It's white. Yeah? Just like rainfall, it is pure, but as soon as it touches the earth, it turns into mud. And then the water thinks that it is mud just because it is connected with the sand particles. And so it takes on the feeling that it is mud, but actually it is pure water, rainfall. Okay? This begins when we start identifying the material body as ourselves and thinking in terms of I and mine. That is, when we act under false ego. And to be reinstated in our original consciousness, we need to undergo the process of removing the filter of material consciousness and proceed determinedly towards our original constitutional position. And how do we do that? By the help of Bhakti Yoga. Okay? Now let's understand what is the difference. This is how consciousness, our consciousness works. How does God's consciousness work? Let's understand that. Okay? It says, consciousness may be pervertly reflected by the covering of material circumstances, just as light reflected through colored glass may appear to be a certain color. That is ours. But the consciousness of the Lord is not materially affected. Lord Krishna says, Maya dhya akshena prakriti. When he descends into the material universe, his consciousness is not materially affected. If he were so affected, he would be unfit to speak on the transcendental matters as he does in the Bhagavad Gita. One cannot say anything about the transcendental world without being free from materially contaminated consciousness. So the Lord is not materially contaminated. So this is the difference. This is the difference between our consciousness, which is originally transcendental, but is now covered into material consciousness. And Bhagwan's consciousness is also transcendental, but the difference is that he never comes under material consciousness. In fact, why is this? Because he is the master of the material nature. As it says, Mayadhyana Akshena Prakriti. Prakriti goes under my command. She works under my direction. So how is it that the servant will ever be greater than the master? That is not possible. That is why he says Krishna's consciousness is never materially afflicted. It is as good as saying, or tell me if this is logical. If the sun says it wants to experience darkness, can it experience darkness? Why? Because wherever the sun goes, it's just light. And where there is light, there is already absence of darkness. So if Krishna says that I want to be materially under material consciousness, that is an impossibility. Because he is transcendental. He is the source of everything. So it's not at all possible that he can ever come under material consciousness. Yet there are so many, as Prabhupada used to say, scrupulous commentators and rascals who would comment that when God or any of his personal expansions like Ram, Narsingh, Vaman, Varadev, when they come into this material world, they are also under the influence of Maya. And then what does Krishna say to such people? He says in 9:11, Avajanati mam muddha manushim tanum ashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhutva mareshwaram. He calls them fools. Fools deride me when I descend in my human form, because they do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. Now, so how do we understand who are the fools? How can we differentiate who are the fools and who are not the fools? So the fools are those people who are under the influence of three modes of material nature. And this is what Krishna says in chapter 7, text number 13. Deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. So if you want to know Krishna truly, you have to be transcending the material modes. If you are within the material modes, forget it. You will not be able to understand Krishna. Right? Even in the 14th chapter, in text number 26, Krishna says that Mam cha yobicharena bhakti yogena sevate, that Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. So by practicing Bhakti Yoga, when you practice Bhakti Yoga, you're already situated in the Brahma Bhuta platform, and that is already above the three modes. Okay? Then only you'll be able to understand Krishna. So now we get to the next point. So we understand that we are minute, and so we are prone to be overcome by Maya. But Krishna is absolute, so Maya is always under him. And therefore it says, so that he says that if he was so affected, if Krishna was affected by Maya, then he would be unfit to speak on transcendental matters. So this means that if somebody is giving transcendental knowledge, then he has to come from a position of speaking the knowledge as it is given by transcendental people or by Krishna himself, who is the source of everything. Yeah, if somebody is giving knowledge, but they are not transcendentally situated, then hearing the Gita's message or any message of the Vedas is useless. Why? Because the Vedas are considered to be apaurushaya, meaning they are not originated from men, or they are not man-made. They come from a divine source. They come from a transcendental source. And that is why the Vedas are transcendental. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that the Vedas were revealed to Lord Brahma in the heart. Tenne Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. The Vedas were revealed to Brahma by divine intervention. And here Gita, Krishna himself, the source of everything, is giving the knowledge. And so this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita is the most pure, is the most transcendental. It is free from the 4 defects that accompany a materially afflicted person. What are the 4 defects? This person has imperfect senses. Because he has imperfect senses, he will make errors in his conclusions. Because he makes errors in his conclusions and he wants to present himself to be learned, he will cheat. And because he cheats and he is proving or he is trying to promote something that is incorrect to be absolute, he is in illusion and he creates other people to be in illusion. And so the Gita knowledge is not like that. It is transcendental. It is not a man-made thing. It is coming from a very divine, the most divine source. Okay? So the Lord is not materially contaminated. Our consciousness at the present moment, however, is materially contaminated. The Bhagavad Gita teaches that we have to purify this materially contaminated consciousness. In pure consciousness, our actions will be dovetailed to the will of Ishvara, and that will make us happy. It is not that we have to cease all activities. Rather, our activities are to be purified, and purified activities are called bhakti. Okay? This is very important. So now the process is given of how to change our perverted consciousness from material consciousness to our original consciousness. And what is our original consciousness? Krishna consciousness. And what does that mean? What does Krishna consciousness mean in realization? That we are the eternal servants of Krishna. That is our original constitution. And that process to change everything, change our consciousness, is the process of Krishna consciousness, which is the process of Bhakti Yoga. Okay? So this is the way, this is the solution. So Prabhupada has done it very nicely. He's given us the problem. He's given us a starting point, and then he's given us the process to perfection. Okay? Yeah. So the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita, if we all know, is a call for us to surrender to Krishna. And surrender is an act of bhakti. Therefore, the final instruction in the Gita is for us to wholeheartedly perform bhakti so that we return to our original consciousness, purified from material consciousness. Indeed, this is what is known as mukti. Mukti means to be freed from the contaminated consciousness of this world and situate ourselves in pure consciousness. Mukti is not what people think. Mukti does not mean freedom from the pangs of material existence. No, that is not what mukti is. Mukti means to be freed from contaminated consciousness and situate ourselves in pure consciousness. That is why when Krishna at the end of the Gita asks Arjuna, are you now situated back in your purified consciousness? He's not asking if you are wanting to get free from material existence. That is not what he asked. He asked Arjuna, are you now situated back in your purified consciousness? That is called mukti. Now in the Shishtastakam, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim kavitam va jagatisha kamaye, mamma janmani janmanishware bhavatar bhaktir aituki tvai. He is not asking, I want liberation. What is he asking? I want aituki bhakti, birth after birth. That is real liberation. Liberation does not mean just go and take moksha. What is that? That is selfish. The four Purushastras, Artha, Kama, Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha, all these are selfish because it's only looking what I'm getting. But when it goes to the fifth Purushastra, which is the highest Purushastra, Prema, then now we are talking. Now this is the conclusion. This is the highest. This is the highest. When you are actually tasting Prema. Prema to who though? To the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then it doesn't matter whether you are in material world or whether you're in the spiritual world or wherever you are. However Krishna keeps you. The only thing that you're looking forward to is I want Krishna's service lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. Yeah? They don't care. They don't care about liberation. Actually, I can't remember which Gaudiya Acharya said this, but he says that liberation is like my maid servant. Yeah? They are waiting for, liberation is waiting for me to put my foot on her head. And I think even in the nectar of devotion, it is said that if you just perform bhakti, then all the results of the four Purushastras, including liberation, is your servant. Is your servant. Yeah? So, then we look at the next one. The next one basically describes whatever I've just said as well. Yeah? An ignorant person may see that a devotee is acting or working like an ordinary man, but such a person with a poor fund of knowledge does not know that the activities of the devotee or of the Lord are not contaminated by impure consciousness or matter. They are transcendental to the three modes of nature. We should know, however, that at this point our consciousness is contaminated. Now this is very interesting, that a bhakta is also eating every day. He's also talking every day. He's also singing. He's also dancing. Same things that are happening outside. But the result is completely different. When a bhakta is doing all these activities, he is doing it for the pleasure of who? He is doing it for the pleasure of Krishna. He is doing it as a service to Krishna. And therefore he is situated in his original constitution and in his original consciousness. While somebody who is doing it for his selfish reasons is getting entangled in his activities. While this person is getting, is breaking free from his shackles. So, it looks the same, but it is worlds apart. It is completely opposite, the result. Okay? So this is what you have to understand. Like even a few days back, it is said that even the asuras, there's one good quality about the asuras, and the good quality about the asuras is determination. There's so much determination. The amount of sacrifices that the demons like Hiranyakashipu, Ravan, all of these people undertook, even divine people cannot take that much, that big of a or that determined effort. But for what reason are the demons doing it? They are doing it for selfish reasons. They are doing it for destructive reasons. While when a divine person does it, he is doing it for pleasing the Lord. So sacrifice, the concept of sacrifice is the same. Even the way you might do the sacrifice might be the same, but there is a complete difference in the result, because it depends on the consciousness in which you are performing that activity. And this is actually explained in so much detail in chapter 14. In chapter 14, the three modes, one activity in each of the three modes one activity will have different results in each of the three modes. And the same is also true for the fourth mode, which is called as Shuddha Sattva. Okay? So basically in this, so far what you've understood is one, that the soul is spiritual, so it does not exert a material influence on the body. Yes, we cannot be able to prove the soul in a materialistic way. If you want to get the proof of the soul, you have to adopt a different set of tools. You have to perform a spiritual experiment. You will not be able to understand the presence of the soul acting materially. Okay? So how does the soul act? It acts by radiating its energy, and that symptom is consciousness. The symptom of the soul is consciousness. And again, how did we understand it? The two analogies. One, the air. Second, the sun. Right? Then what we said is, okay, both our consciousness is transcendental. Consciousness itself is transcendental because consciousness is a symptom of the soul and also the super soul. And both the soul and super soul are spiritual, and so they are already transcendental. So the originally consciousness is always transcendental. But our consciousness, the soul's consciousness, can be covered by Maya or can be covered by material nature. But Bhagwan's consciousness never gets materially contaminated. And then, because we are material contaminated, we need to transcend the modes to be able to understand Krishna and to be able to understand our relationship with Krishna. And to perfect the relationship with Krishna, we need to perform Bhakti Yoga. Okay? So this is what we are at. This is where Prabhupada writes that we should know, however, that at this point, our consciousness is material. And now, we'll understand what that actually means from the next paragraph onwards. Okay. Thank you so much. Anyone has any questions? Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, how does the scientists prove death in terms of they don't believe in a soul?
Yeah.
So there's a person who is alive,
Yeah.
and then there's a dead person.
Yeah.
So what do they say? That the body is there, the senses are there, everything is there. How do they prove that death?
So, okay, I'm not a doctor. I'm not in the medical field. But I had this discussion with a medical friend of mine who is a doctor, and he was telling me that in science now they are understanding that there are certain indicators in the body that if this has passed, then that means that person is dead. You cannot reverse it. You cannot reverse this. So they have tried to explain it in a very materialistic way how death occurs. So before they used to think that we'll find a way to make people live forever, but now they've at least come to that understanding that death will come. And they've tried to explain death in a way that it's because of an irreversible change in the body that happens. Then you cannot bring it back to life. So that's what they've tried to explain it as. They've tried to explain it as the body has run out of juice. Yeah, you cannot replace anything in the body to bring it back alive. That's what they say. But we understand that is not how it is.
They are only understanding about the symptoms, not the force of the symptom. So when they explain this man is dead, they see the symptom. There is no symptom, now he is dead. They give the certificate. But they don't know that the symptom coming from who was dead.
What was the original?
They don't understand this. And then their understanding just like their experiment. They do the experiment like that. एक वक्त एक कथा बताता है जैसे कॉकरोच है कॉकरोच एक कॉकरोच लेके आया एक साइंटिस्ट ने कॉकरोच लेके आया और कॉकरोच को एक्सपेरिमेंट करता है चलता है चल रहा है ना उसका एक पाँव तोड़ दिया, फिर वो बोलता है चलो, हमने तोड़ा तो बोला चलो तो चलता है, फिर एक पाँव तोड़ दिया फिर बोलता चलो तो चलता है, और वो जब पूरा 6 पाँव उसका तोड़ दिया बोला चलो तो नहीं चलता, तो उसका एक्सपेरिमेंट जो कंक्लूजन था ना,
नहीं वो बहरा हो गया।
कंक्लूजन ये था कि जब काकरोच के 6 पाँव टूट जाते हैं तो बाहर हो जाता है,
becomes deaf.
बाहर आती
Deaf.
डेफ हो जाता है, ये उसका कंक्लूजन। सब साइंटिस्ट का यही कंक्लूजन है।
Yeah.
ये all they are just talking on the air,
Yeah.
बेस नहीं, बेस नहीं, जब बेस है ना
Hmm.
टॉप है, ये बीच में लेकर के बस।
Yeah. So this is, it is important to understand that how is it even possible, that the concept of even atheism can come about? Yeah, because Krishna has made it possible. Krishna has made it possible for people to even come up with the concept of atheism, because people can said, oh, we have made so much scientific discovery. In all scientific discovery, we are not seeing a supreme person pulling the strings behind the scenes to try and make everything work. Yeah, they're not saying, we can explain everything with maths, we can explain everything with science, we can explain, and the more and more that more advances happen, the more they get stuck in their system that will be able to prove everything. But again, as Prabhupada says, this is all a post-dated check. Trust no future, however pleasant. Okay? But it's also true that you can explain everything in a materialistic sense, because Krishna has created this material world as a complete and perfect whole. Okay? So now think about, okay, I've studied management as well. So in management, they say that the best managers are those that you don't even see at all, because they've created a system so perfect that you don't even see them getting involved in the day-to-day running of the project. Yeah? And Bhagwan is the greatest manager. So that means that his system must be so perfect that he doesn't need to do anything. He is there in his spiritual world, and he's just by thinking, he has created a perfect system that is capable of running on its own. He just provided the initial what do you call it, spark. Just like, see, they say that if you want to understand God, you can understand yourself, because we are also a sample of God. So just by understanding the soul and the body, how the soul influences the body, even yet being so small, it is able to power this entire body. It is able to give its radiance and its energy. So this entire body, which works automatically, keeps on working just by being there. Just by being there, it is working. Similarly, Krishna, sitting in the spiritual world, just by him thinking, just by him willing, he can create this entire material world and make it work perfectly. Yeah? So that is why we cannot experiment materially to find the original source. We have to have eyes of knowledge. For example, if I tell you, who is your father? You tell, this is my father. Okay, who is your father's father? Or you might have a picture, you'll show me that, okay, this is my grandfather. I tell you, who is his father? And you'll be like, okay, there's a guy by this name. Now who is his father? Oh, until you get to the original source. And the original source is Krishna. Because Krishna says, Sarva Karanam, Karanam. Karma Karanam, sorry. Sarva Karma Karanam. He is the original source of everything. Yeah? So we have to try and find the original. And we'll find the original based on knowledge, the eyes of knowledge. Not through our material eyes, not with our experimental knowledge. Because that is going to be always frustrated attempt. And that is why Krishna says that if you want to understand this science, transcendental science, you have to understand it through the eyes of knowledge. And where do you get the eyes of knowledge? Where can you train yourself to get the eyes of knowledge? Is you have to go to a spiritual master who is a self-realized soul, who knows the tattva, who has seen the tattva. So that is what that's what is needed. Yeah? Otherwise, we'll not be able to understand this science. Krishna himself has said this. We'll not be able to understand it otherwise. Okay.
All they are studying the effect, not the cause.
Yes.
Effect, the symptom.
The symptoms.
Okay, this is how it works.
Yes.
Not both the-
Okay.
Don't know the source.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.